Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Sam Darley Show. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about the NFL's Conference Championship weekend with the NFC Championship game between the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. And then, later on in the evening, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers at Foxborough to take on Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Now, the Green Bay Packers came off a thrilling victory, 34-31, over the Dallas Cowboys, thanks to Aaron Rodgers' MVP performance, throwing a clutch pass to Jared Cook to set up a game-winning 56-yard field goal, courtesy of Mason Crosby. Dallas is going home, one and done, just like I said that they would. Atlanta beat up on the Seattle Seahawks with the number one offense. Now, there might be distractions for the Falcons, though, because Kyle Shanahan's being linked to the head coaching job at San Francisco. In fact, he's the favorite to land that job, so, it's a wait and see, but I think that Shanahan's going to be gone from Atlanta after the season. It might be after this weekend. Then, in the AFC Championship game, the Patriots had a god-awful divisional round against the Houston Texans. The Texan defense repeatedly beat up Brady, forced turnovers, but because of Brock Osweiler and the Texans' anemic offense, the Patriots somehow survived. And then, thanks to Andy Reid's clock management blunder, the Kansas City Chiefs never really had a shot to come back in the last seconds of the game against the Steelers. Holding penalty on the 2-point conversion after they got the score to 18-16 was overturned because of a holding penalty, which gave the Kansas City Chiefs a second opportunity, but to no avail. It's the second year in a row that Andy Reid has cost the Kansas City Chiefs with his clock management skills. Somebody might want to teach him how to use his timeouts. You always use your timeouts after the 2-minute warning, not before. Speaking of the Houston Texans, they made a change today on their coaching staff. Today they fired George Godsey, and they'll be looking for an offensive coordinator. They want to retain Romeo Crennel, who's a free agent coach, after another dominant year on defense. The Texans would be wise to give him a new contract, unless they want to promote Mike Vrabel, the linebackers coach, to defensive coordinator. So what's in store for this weekend of the NFL's Conference Championship weekend? Well, the number one offense is going against Red Hot Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. Now, the thing about the Green Bay Packers in the game against the Cowboys, the longer the game went on, the more physical the Cowboys got. They wore down the Packer defense, and I think, that's something the Falcons can use to their advantage. They get the run game going. They've got two speed demons in Coleman and Freeman. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get those guys going off the bat straight. They're going to have to get their offense in rhythm early, and I think if they do that, they've got a shot. And I think this game could be a barn burner, honestly. Neither team has a really dominant defense. I mean, Green Bay gets the stops when they really need it, but it's not like it's not like the Texans' number one defense where you're just like, okay, if they get ahead early, they're gonna put you away. Now they've got a meh defense, which could open the door for Atlanta. And I think Atlanta with the number one offense, playing at home, it's going to be really, really insane in Atlanta. They came a yard away from the Super Bowl back in 2012 against the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is Atlanta's second trip with quarterback Matt Ryan, and I think this is an important game for Matt Ryan. He's had a monster season, an MVP season under Kyle Shanahan, and I think he's going to have another MVP-like performance to outduel Aaron Rodgers, who's just on a roll. And I got to tell you about Aaron Rodgers. That man can make any throw from any part of the field. It's just insane what he can do with the football. Wish the Texans had a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Well, then again, I think everybody wishes they had a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Except for maybe New England, Indy, Pittsburgh, and Seattle. But, you got to have great quarterback play in the playoffs if you're going to survive. And you got to have a great defense. I think Atlanta is going to win this thing and go to the Super Bowl. I think they're going to have the ball. This is going to come down to whoever has the ball last. And I think Atlanta's going to have the ball last. I think Atlanta's going to drive down and score a game-winning touchdown. I think I'm going to take Atlanta 45-41. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be exciting. On the other end of the AFC, it's a classic matchup of Patriots and Steelers, Big Ben against Brady, and Belichick in New England. This is going to be, if New England has a game like they had against Houston, you can pretty much stick the dagger in them, because Roethlisberger is not Osweiler. He's not going to make ding-dong mistakes. He's not going to play mediocre when you give him 3 or 4 turnovers, even if it's on the road. It's Big Ben. He's an elite quarterback. And I just want to say something. ESPN posted a picture today about the AFC, how there's not really much parity. Big Ben, team of Peyton Manning with the Colts Broncos, and Tom Brady have pretty much ruled the AFC. The big reason they've won the AFC and been to many Super Bowls is, other than Joe Flacco, it's been Brady, Roethlisberger, or Peyton Manning. And the reason for that is there hasn't been many good quarterbacks, or even quarterbacks on the level of Brady and Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning in the AFC. And I really, really fully believe that had the Texans had a better quarterback, and had Andy Reid not screwed up the clock management, we could probably be looking at Texans-Chiefs AFC title game, but we're not. And I'm just going to say something about that. Andy Reid needs to learn how to use his timeouts. The guy used all 3 of his timeouts in the 4th quarter before the 2-minute warning. You never do that. You always save at least 2. You try to save 2 timeouts so you can stop the clock twice, But when you use your timeouts, all of them before the 2-minute warning, you can't stop the clock. So you put a lot of pressure on your defense, and that's what happened. I mean, Kansas City had every opportunity to win that game last night. They did. They blew it. They were at home. It was cold. They had Tyreek Hill busted open on a go route, and Alex Smith sat in the pocket and just decided he wanted to take off running and end up doing Mr. Checkdown. Again, that's another issue. Alex Smith is not an elite quarterback. And I was telling this to my dad watching the game last night, and I said, Nick Foles gives the Chiefs a legitimate deep threat as a quarterback. Alex Smith is just going to look for the check down, and it's not going to. You can't be doing 2-yard passes. You've got to be able to stretch the field and stretch defenses, and Alex Smith just can't. He can't do it. He cannot hit a deep ball to save his life. And the holding penalty at the end of the game and the 2-point conversion was spot on. And in fact, it actually gave the Chiefs a second chance, because if they don't call that, or they don't commit the penalty at all, James Harrison gets a hold of Alex Smith, and that they don't get that opportunity to tie the game. So, it was a gutsy call, but it was a call that needed to be made. So, at the end of the day, the Chiefs had their opportunities, the Texans had their opportunities, and that's really all you can do. It's all you can ask for those two teams, because they're going up against elite quarterbacks, and if your quarterback can't make plays, then you got no chance. And at the end of the day, Kansas City in the offseason and Houston both have to be thinking about the long-term solution at quarterback. Sorry, Kansas City, I don't think Alex Smith is the guy. Unless you're playing Brian Hoyer, then he probably will be the guy. Yeah, I was at that playoff game last year against the Chiefs, and I'll be realistic here. If Brian Hoyer doesn't turn the ball over, the Texans probably win 14-0. Because Alex Smith is just not that good of a quarterback. And the Texans' defense was all over the Chiefs that day until, again, they wore down because Hoyer kept turning the ball over. So, New England and Pittsburgh, AFC, classic matchup in Foxborough. The key to I'm going to take New England at home, but I think if they, again, simply because they know they have to play better. Belichick knows it. Brady knows it. I don't think they'll make as many mistakes as they made against the Texans. They won't. And I think they win. I'm going to say they're going to win 34-27. I think it'll be a close game. It'll be a classic Steelers-Patriots game. Now, if Le'Veon Bell has a monster game and Antonio Brown can bust off a couple of big plays, and I could see Pittsburgh winning, but, again, I don't see the Patriots having back-to-back mediocre games. And that was New England basically opened the door and the Texans couldn't walk in. And that's just, they can't do that again this week because I'm telling you right now, Big Ben would gladly walk through that door and beat the Patriots. But I just don't see it happening. I don't see them having back-to-back crappy games. And, I think New England's going to move on to Houston in the Super Bowl, not the Texans. Be New England, Atlanta in the Super Bowl. That'd be nice. I know I'll be pulling for Atlanta because not because I respect Belichick, I respect Brady, but my goodness, it would be nice to see somebody that hasn't won a Super Bowl in forever win one. And I know Atlanta would be absolutely rocking if the Falcons won the Super Bowl. And it's and Matt Ryan, who's had some previous playoff failures, to have him finally win a ring would be huge in his career. It would go a long way to bringing back his legacy, making him, he is one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and it's going to take a lot. It really is. It's going to. But that number one offense is, they got a chance with that number one offense. And Belichick's got a lot of experience in the Super Bowl, and Dan Quinn doesn't. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. But I think Atlanta's going to win the NFC, and I think the Patriots are going to win the AFC, and I think the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl. That's just my take. It's going to be Patriots-Falcons with the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I'm going to say 34-21. 34-21 over the Falcons. I think Belichick will find a way to shut down that number one offense. Some NBA news. The Houston Rockets busted a 2-game losing streak. If you were to call it 2-game losing streak. They routed the Brooklyn Nets. It's Brooklyn. They beat them 137-112. They're making a move on the number 2 seed in the West. They're still in the hunt with the Golden State Warriors for the number 1 spot in the West. They're 32-11. It's just amazing. What a difference a year makes, and what a difference moving James Harden to the point guard makes. The Houston Rockets have made tremendous strides as a team this year, and they're a very good team, and I think the Rockets, are they a contender? I want to believe they are. I do, but I still think they need they need a rim protector. I know Boga is injured with the Mavericks, but if the Clippers keep falling, maybe they get DeAndre Jordan. Who knows? But I know one thing: they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. They are. They're very good. They play very fast, shoot the ball well. They play pretty good defense. I just hope that playoff Harden doesn't show up, because if playoff Harden shows up, the Rockets are in trouble. And what do I mean by playoff Harden? Look at his playoff runs every year. He's been in the league. His numbers, his shooting is down, his shooting percentage is down, his turnovers are up. He doesn't get as many of those foul calls that he usually gets in the regular season. So I want to see how James Harden handles that. That's going to wrap up the show tonight, folks. The New England Patriots take on the Steelers Sunday evening, 5 o'clock Houston time, or 5:40 Houston time, excuse me. And the afternoon game is the Falcons and the Packers, 2 o'clock Houston time. And that's going to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening.